Welcome, everybody. So good to have you here. We're starting right on time at 2:10. Thank you all for being here to talk about the future of cohort-based courses. I'm going to do a quick round of intros, and we're going to jump right into it. Starting at the end, over there, Candice Faktor is co-founder and co-CEO of Disco, platform for knowledge creators to build live learning empires. Robbie Crabtree advises and coaches early-stage startup founders and founding teams on mastering the skills of storytelling and strategic communication. Wes Cow is the co-founder of Maven. The first platform makes it easy for anyone to teach live, engaging cohort-based courses online. Andrew Barry is the founder of Curious Lion. Ooh, look at that. A learning culture, yeah, applause in the first 1 minute. A learning culture advisory firm reimagining the way companies like PagerDuty, Pinterest, and KPMG transform their people and working with creators to help them scale their courses. And right on the end here, Dickie Bush is the founder of Ship 30 for 30, a wildly popular cohort-based course and community teaching students the fundamentals of digital writing. And my name is Alex Sarlin. I am the founder and host of the Edtech Insiders podcast. All right, so we're going to kick it off with a question about cohort-based courses themselves, right? Cohort-based courses take place in real-time, live sessions with a cohort of learners working in a community. And CBCs really came onto the scene in a big way in 2020, thanks in large part to the people on this panel, both as a response to the lack of community and intimacy in asynchronous courses, and as a new option for both educators and learners to connect in learning communities during a global pandemic. Now that the COVID pandemic is starting to ebb and other in-person educational options are open for business, how do you see changes coming to the CBC world? Let's start at the end with Candice.
Well, first off, thanks for hosting us. I think it's so interesting. I've met Robbie and I've met Adam, and I've only met them virtually, and we've actually worked together virtually. And I'm sitting here on a panel with them, and it's better, but it's actually not like 100x better. And so the reason I'm saying that is when I think about the future of live social learning, I think it's here to stay. And the reason for that is events like this are amazing. They're super expensive, they're hard to get to, and they're very disruptive to your calendar. Yet they're incredible once in a while, once a year. But what people are looking for, I think, is much more efficient, convenient options when it comes to having that transformative learning experience. And so I think we're going to see a lot of longevity in this new form of live social learning.
What do you think, Robbie?
So I think you're going to see kind of two paths start to play out in cohort-based courses. I think you're going to see people who are coming into the space early on and are building more of a B2C model in that cohort-based course. They're teaching a skill, they're marketing it to people on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on whatever platform that they have for the skill that they have. For instance, I taught storytelling and communication. That was how I first got into it. But as you grow over time, I think there's going to be divergence from a lot of these creators who realize, hey, maybe B2C isn't the play I want to make long term, and you're going to start taking that into corporate cultures and going with an enterprise play where you bring the cohort learning experience into those entities. So I think there's going to be two different paths that creators can take. I think the advantage that creators have who get into the game early is they're figuring out best practices, building out MVPs, and being way ahead of the learning curve. So if they want to go the enterprise route, they can, because they're so much more skilled at facilitation, at creating community, and really building a transformational experience.
Please. Wes, the future of cohort-based courses in a COVID-free world.
Yeah, I look at it a lot from the supply side of cohort-based courses, which is instructors. So if you think about the type of instructors that a lot of students might want to learn from, the kinds of instructors that are succeeding with cohort-based courses are often subject matter experts, they're operators with a lot of great experience, and a lot of them have enough options in life to not have to teach at a local university. And they don't want to be an adjunct professor. They don't want to teach at someplace within a 10, 20-mile radius from where they are. So I think the exciting thing about cohort-based courses, even as the world opens back up, is that a lot of these instructors want to teach from the comfort of their home. They want the flexibility to turn on a cohort whenever they want to run a cohort, once a month or 4 times a year, 8 times a year, without needing to travel to, this location or show up to this classroom, a drive away. So I think from the instructor side, cohort-based courses attract a lot of amazing talent that you otherwise wouldn't be able to learn from. And then for students, that now means that you are not constrained to physical proximity for who you can learn from.
Yeah. So we're hearing that in a post-COVID world, just like online learning in many formats may survive and thrive even when other forms start to come back, cohort-based courses have advantages of scale, of location, of flexibility for instructors that are going to outlast and continue to rise, which makes sense. There also may be a change to B2B. Andrew, I'd love to hear a little what you're thinking here.
Yeah, so the B2B angle is one that I think about a lot. There's also like an adverse selection problem in education, right? Where the highest performers are the ones that don't have the time to teach that, right? And you see this played out a lot in work settings. And so I think that what's interesting about CBCs and it's sort of like the scalability and flexibility where you can have like a pretty low friction version of it. Doesn't have to be a full 8-week full-blown experience. There's lots of different ways to use this model of learning, which solves a bit of that adverse selection problem, right? It gives the high-performing individuals a platform and a way to share that knowledge with people. And we'd look at it from that. So it's when Robbie was talking about creators selling into companies, I think there's also a really interesting sort of future of this model taking shape within companies, where sort of creators within companies can now share that knowledge with each other.
That's interesting. How about you, Dickie?
I think they hit the B2B, B2C pretty nicely on the head. One, I think, not as well thought out on this one, but if we go from almost everyone working remotely to a large percentage going back into the office, how many of those were students that would have taken a cohort-based course had they been working remotely all day and could take a hour-and-a-half Zoom session in the middle of the day if they didn't have another meeting? But if they're back in the office, now they might not sign up for that course because they know they're going to be unable to. So that's on the course creator side, doing calls late at night, things like that. But I think they hit the nail on the head mostly.
So you're the first one who said there may be a little bit of a snapback effect when people have when students have less flexible schedules to actually attend these courses. I think time will tell, but it makes a lot of sense. We have such an interesting panel here. There are 3 course creators and advisors who actually teach people how to do cohort-based courses, and 2 platform founders. And I want to ask, for an educator, course creator, aspiring course creator who's thinking about making a cohort-based course, how should they make the decision whether to go with a platform, whether to use a toolkit like a Teachable, or to sort of build their own stack? What is the sort of core differentiators for the platforms that allow them to accelerate and build a learning empire? Actually, let's go a different way here. Robbie, can I start with you as a creator? Come around.
So I think it depends on how you see your business playing out. If you see it as the core thing that you're going to be doing, maybe you want to build that entire process internally so your team controls everything. That's certainly possible. If you see it as a piece of what you're building, or it's just in addition to what you're already doing, let's say you're a really talented, so I came from being a trial lawyer. Let's say you're a trial lawyer and you want to teach other lawyers how to be better in the courtroom. That would be easy to do, but you wouldn't want to give up your normal day-to-day job. So maybe there, it would make sense to pick a platform that can help take a lot of the friction points off your plate. So it's almost a plug and play. Because if you start from scratch and you build that entire stack yourself, it is a lot of work. There are a lot of moving pieces. You've got to understand no-code tools like Zapier and how to do email marketing and all these different pieces, how to write a landing page, copy, all of these things. And so it can be really challenging. Now, if you see long-term that's going to be your one core business, then maybe it makes sense to build that out because you're going to have a higher team, you're going to bring it all internally. So I think that would be the distinction I look at is it your core thing that you're going to do? Is it a piece of your overall empire, or is it in addition to something you're already doing? The last 2, I would choose a platform. The first one, I would do it all on your own and figure out a way to build it yourself.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just wanted, and I think I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, because I think the thing you didn't mention explicitly, but it's the audience part of it, which is important, right? Like, who owns that audience? Are we building an audience that is going to follow the creator and whatever they do, or are we building an audience that are we getting help to build an audience, right? And so I'm interested in kind of how you guys think about that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to throw that to Candice.
Yeah, I love this question because I think it's a super important one, and it's really why we have built Disco the way we have. So just to explain, like, Disco has two parts of our business. We have Disco SaaS, which is very much what you're talking about, where creators that want to own their audience, their brand, their data, and just have the technology to make it easier. Because it's actually very complicated to have live chat, some live video, content somewhere, application processes. There's so many different configurations. So you kind of want to use a piece of technology, in my opinion, where you can just have everything in one easy experience. So that's our Disco SaaS product. And then we have something called Disco Studios, where actually for a lot of people who want to do more than just focus on building their school, we actually provide more support. Because I think, as you have just mentioned, it's a lot of work to build all of the great marketing, learning design, community design. So working with people who can help you may make sense in that model. But my background is from the creator economy. I helped build one of the largest storytelling marketplaces, and I just heard so many times, again and again, I want to work with a platform where I can own my data, own my brand, own my revenue. I do not want to be a part of somebody else's, at their whim of being a marketplace.
Wes, I'm curious about Maven's approach.
Yeah, I think it really depends on where you want to be spending your time. So what we've seen on Maven is that a lot of course instructors, content creators, their favorite part and the reason that they got into creating a course was not to mess with technology. So before starting Maven, I co-founded the Alt MBA with Seth Godin. And this was 2014, 2015. And we did everything by hand back then. There was not a platform like Maven or Disco around where you could have everything in one place. And so I was spending an enormous amount of time cobbling together a bunch of free or low-cost tools. I was using WordPress, ConvertKit, Zapier to stitch things together, Unbounce for my landing page. And I spent so much time just messing around with the technology, and all of a sudden some tools might stop working and talking to one another, right? And that was not the best use of Seth and my time. We wanted to focus on community. We wanted to focus on content. We wanted to focus on teaching. And so I think if you're thinking about creating a course and you are good at the technical part, or you have resources that you can tap into where you can partner with someone who can build a custom platform for you, or kind of be your IT person, I think building it yourself might make sense. But if you don't want to take on that overhead and you don't want to spend effort and cycles of your brain kind of working on that tech piece, outsourcing that so that you can focus on content, on audience engagement, on teaching, that is, if you want to do that, then using a platform can be helpful so that you start teaching and start focusing on content right away from day one.
Dickie, what is your take? I think you have built your own.
Yeah, I can vouch for the difficulty of hacking together no-code tools. And just for some context, January 2021 was the first cohort of Ship 30. And so there really wasn't Maven or Disco at that time as prevalent it is now. So if you told me back then I could use a platform instead of having a Zapier account that runs 40,000 zaps a month at this point to keep 3,000 students in a year kind of humming, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I will say I got to learn a lot about the way everything worked, so I wouldn't trade that experience. But I think if you're a creator who's not looking to get nitty-gritty ConvertKit, trying to set up sequences and things like that, you have to go that route.
Yeah, so hearing a lot of technology support, you can piece all the different tech tools together and have a one-stop shop. I'd actually also like to hear a little bit about the sort of community aspect of course building. So you work on your own, have to build everything yourself. You can hire people, and I know the two of you, Robbie and Andrew, work together as a course creator collective. I'm curious, for the platforms, how do you enrobe a creator in sort of human support as well as technology support to make sure that the course goes well? Let's start with you, Wes.
Yeah, Maven has an instructor community where instructors meet each other, share what they're struggling with, share what they're learning. This is a super important part of course creation because it can be a really lonely process doing this all yourself. You're essentially a business owner. Your course is your business, and if you don't have people to talk to, it can be really hard. So Maven, we have over 100 creators on our platform, and they range from smaller creators who are making $10,000 to $30,000 per cohort, all the way to $100,000 to $300,000 per cohort. So depending on your audience size, on what you're teaching, the demand for your course, it really ranges. But when we bring instructors together, they can all learn from each other. There's a lot of patterns with what tends to work well with engaging students, and the challenges that the different instructors are facing, and bringing them together is a great way to knowledge share.
It's a great meta experience for what they have to do anyway, right? Bring that community. Yeah, very cool.
Please.
Yeah, I in a very similar way, we run something called Disco U. And for us, it's very much, as Andrew says, it's so meta because this is a new phenomenon, right? Like if you think about it, it was less than 18 months ago that 300 million people were trained on being live together on Zoom. So everybody's learning. And one of the things that we like to do is twofold. One, but like Andrew and Robbie were part of our accelerator program that we launched. But in addition, we now have a live learning empire building series where we're actually bringing the true greats of platforms that have actually built true live learning empires. So one of the things that I think is also a misnomer is that there's one kind of live learning experience called a cohort-based course. There's actually a variety of different products you can build in this space. And that's like when people say, are you a course platform at Disco? I say, no, we actually offer course software, but amongst a whole bunch of other different really powerful live learning formats. And so we bring people like On Deck is a customer of ours. They run their academies with us. So hearing from the head of education that's running On Deck, we have Tiago Forte, who's going to be talking about how he built his live learning empire. So it's also learning from the people who've really succeeded. We like to bring that into our community, and then obviously peer-led learning from all the people who are participating.
One thing to point out, though, is, me and Dickie started our courses pre any of this. I launched mine in October of 2020, and Dickie, you were January of 2021, which is like how me and Dickie first got to know each other. There weren't communities. And while community is great, I love communities, I think it's super important. If you don't have what it takes to get in there and grind and do the hard work as a course creator on your own, it's probably not the right career to follow. That's going to be the harsh reality of things. Is you're building a business. You are the founder, you are the CEO, you are in charge of every single piece. You will wake up in the middle of the night worrying about something going wrong. And if you aren't taking it seriously enough, because people are trusting you with transformations, with their money, with their time, with their energy. And if you aren't thinking, how am I going to deliver the best result to these people, and you need a community of support to get there, it may not be the right fit for you. You got to take that extremely seriously. So you've got to be willing to put in those hard nights.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I think that it's exciting to hear that course creators who are working either with a platform or on their own are that committed. I'm running my first cohort-based course right now, and I've been waking up in the middle of the night worried about different aspects of it. I completely understand how that works. You're running a business, you're running a course, people are trusting you. I wanted to ask a little bit about, some creators have found this really sort of stellar success with the CBC format. You mentioned the sort of idea of learning empires, multi-format. Dickie, I think you shipped 30 for 30 is one of them. Robbie, you've done this as well. You've mentioned Tiago Forte, Ali Abdal, David Perel, Seth Godin. What would you, as a panel, say are some of the main characteristics, besides that sort of like all-in, that can help creators reach that sort of escape velocity and actually create a viable business that may even be a full-time job? Andrew, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it starts and ends with the transformation. Like you have to transform people, because the only way to truly scale these things is through, I mean, yeah, you can hack a lot of stuff together, but the real like sustainable way to do it is through referrals and word of mouth and people going, that literally changed my life. So that's sort of where I got my start as well, was sort of focused on that, like how to create transformations. That's the part I'm good at. I'm very keen to hear what everyone else here, kind of how do you now take that to the next level and build on that?
How about you, Dickie?
The transformation is, if you're going to build something that can reach hundreds or thousands of people, you're not going to be able to reach all of them directly. It's a network effect, right? You change one person's life and they tell 5 people, those 5 people tell 5 people. And I think if you look at what Ship30's done, like you said, Tiago Forte, Ali Abdal, the students rave about it. And when you simplify it to that, it's how can I create an experience and transformation where you go through this 30-day learning and you go home and tell everyone that you know about it. You have to take this thing. And then you can also incentivize that with referral programs and things like that, where from there, that's how you reach 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people.
Pouring gas on the fire.
How about you, Candice? How did you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's for everyone, right? I think it is, as Robbie says, it's a lot of work to do a traditional cohort-based course, traditional as in it's new, but like the standard format of that. I think there's two things I would recommend. So one is you actually have to give a lot before you start taking. And I think the best knowledge creators and learning communities, they actually give a ton. So there's a lot of first, building the community, building your brand, building your authority, building the trust. And then, to your point, if you are not delivering transformation and people are not going to refer other people, it's really, really hard to go from a 0 to I'm buying a very highly priced, expensive experience. So you really want your flywheel to be referrals. I think the other thing to think about that's really different is it's not about the content. You know, a lot of people get, like the old world of courses pre-live was all about having the best content. And it was a consumption experience. What I think this format lends itself very well to is having an experience. And often that experience is about the practice and the process and the community that you're able to build. And that's a very different skill set that you need to cultivate as a creator. And I think, you know, all these three, I know all of your work really well, like they've done a phenomenal job of creating a practice and a process and an experience that delivers transformation. We have Lisa Lambert, she was actually meant to be on this panel, who also used to work with Wes and Seth at Alt MBA. And that's what, you know, she's really brought, is the pedagogy around how do you create enrollment in a way that really people, like you're not marketing or selling to them, the experience is selling itself.
Wes, I know you've written extensively about this concept of transformation that we're hearing throughout the panel. I'd love to hear your take on it as well.
Yeah, definitely. The student outcomes that you drive are so important. If you think about why someone might pay a premium for a course, I mean, cohort-based courses cost anywhere between $500 to $5,000 per student. So it's not just that you need to drive great student outcomes, it's that it needs to be on a topic that students are willing to pay for. And so I think a lot of thinking about reaching escape velocity, thinking about building a great course business, is kind of the unglamorous part of thinking about course market fit. So we all know about product market fit. And so course market fit is a derivative of that, where you think about, am I the right instructor to be teaching the right topic at the right time to the right target student at the right price point, at the right positioning? So you could be the right instructor teaching the wrong topic, and that's not going to land. Or you might be the right instructor teaching the right topic for a price point that's way too high or way too low. Or you might be teaching it to the wrong target student. Or you might be teaching it might be the right, the right person, right topic, but the positioning is off, right? So there's so many variables with thinking through course market fit. And in the Maven Course Accelerator, which is a 3-week course that I teach, it's very meta. We teach you everything that you need to know about how to build a cohort-based course. And we start with course market fit, with course marketing. Because most people do course marketing at the end. They spend a ton of time building amazing curriculum, putting together their slide decks, building exercises, take-home different projects. And then once they create all this great content and all this great activities for their course, they then start thinking about marketing it and thinking about how do I get students. And sometimes you launch a course and it's crickets and tumbleweed. There's no one there who wants to buy it. So it's super important to think up front about why am I the right person, teaching the right topic, et cetera. And it's so important that to apply to join the Maven Course Accelerator, we actually have instructors do a survey to their audience. And we found that even people with really big audiences who you would think have kind of figured out their product market fit still learn a lot from their survey. So Anthony Pompliano is one example, Pomp. He has a very popular crypto course on Maven. He has 1 million followers, literally 1 million followers on Twitter. He has a popular podcast, newsletter. He's an investor. So he has a huge audience across different channels. And when he was putting together his Maven course, he originally thought that his target student was going to be beginners in crypto. So he started creating all this content. And about halfway through, we thought, OK, Pomp, we think you know your audience, but just to be sure, let's go ahead and do this survey. And he surveyed his audience, and it turns out that 60 to 70% of people who said they would take the course self-identified as intermediate to advanced in their knowledge of crypto. So he ended up scrapping half of his curriculum, redoing it, and reorienting it towards his actual target student. So really thinking about course market fit up front, thinking about who is going to buy this, answering those hard questions up front sets you up for success.
So I just want to do a little survey of the room. How many people in this room think they either are already a course creator or are thinking about becoming a cohort-based course creator? I'm curious. Gotcha. Maybe it looks like about a quarter of the room. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask one more question, but I want to open it up to the audience. I'm sure that you have some really burning questions for this amazing panel as well. So start thinking of them now. My last question is about the B2B side, which has come up a little bit. So we've seen over the years that a lot of the asynchronous course and MOOC platforms have increasingly turned to B2B models. So we saw Udacity, Udemy, Coursera, Pluralsight, LinkedIn, Learning, edX all build B2B businesses on top of their B2C. We've already mentioned this a bit, but how do you see the CBC world moving in that direction already? How do you see it moving faster? I know that the two of you are already deep into that. And what would you say are some of the benefits of CBCs over traditional corporate training and asynchronous offerings like LinkedIn Learning? Dickie, why don't we start with you? I know this is not your core thing, but I'm curious what you think, and then we'll go around.
The way I see it breaking down is B2B is going to be very tactical and skill acquisition oriented. If you have something like Robbie where we're going to teach you how to speak and tell stories effectively. I think that fits perfectly in the B2B model versus if you're going to continue on the B2C and have a lower price point, so you're going to build a sustainable business, have to have more people, you have to focus on the transformation in the community. Where yes, maybe you're teaching a skill, but really people are joining because they know they're going to make friends for life, they know they're going to walk away with a tangible skill as well, but you double down on the community and transformation side versus, hey, you're showing up, learning this skill, and then you're just going to keep going in your full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the corporate learning world, both at the corporates and now we sell into them. And I think anybody here who's done corporate training will know that it's pretty much garbage, like most of it, right? And the problem is the training in companies is thought of as an event. So let's do a needs analysis, figure out what these people need. We'll create a course and we'll drop it on them, and then we're done. And that has sometimes a short-term, positive impact, but long-term that doesn't really work. And so then the needs analysis has to start again, right? And so that cycle repeats, and it's training as an event. But we all know in this world of cohort-based courses that learning is a process. It's not an event. It's a process of, consume some content to get a framework and a mental model, reflect on it, what it means to you, talk about it with someone else, take some action, reflect on that, and kind of repeat that process. And I think that's what we'll start to see a lot more in companies as they move from training as an event to learning as a process.
Let's go down the line, but I know you have a lot to say on this. Wes, I'm curious about how Maven is thinking about B2C and B2B.
We have a lot of instructors who are talking to different companies who want to offer a block of seats for their employees. So Shivani Berry is a good example. Shivani teaches a course called Ascend, and it's a leadership and management workshop for women in tech. And so Shivani has students from Amazon, Instacart, Facebook, Google, once one student from Amazon or from Instacart or wherever take her course and has a great experience, they will often talk about it to their coworkers, especially if there are employee resource groups, ERGs. Her course lends itself really well to companies offering this as a benefit to their employees. I think another great example is Pomp. So Pomp's course, the crypto course, companies like Coinbase will come and recruit out of Pomp's course at the last day of his cohort-based course. So it's great for employers because they get to tap into a group of students, new alumni who cared enough about crypto to take a course on it and have good foundational knowledge on crypto. And it's great for Pomp students because they get access to recruiters and get to be in front of hiring managers. Lenny Rachitsky is another great example. So Lenny has a course on Maven on product management, and a lot of tech companies in Silicon Valley will send their employees to Lenny's course. If we think about the lens from an employer or a manager, if you as the manager are not teaching these skills to your people, they have to learn it from somewhere. So being able to send them to a 3-week course where they can learn a topic from an expert who you respect, whether it's Lenny, Shivani, or Pomp, or any number of other instructors, saves them a lot of time. They personally don't have to train this person, and they would otherwise need to do so.
Robbie, please.
So I think the B2C a lot of times is almost like a Trojan horse for some creators where you get that in to what Wes is talking about. You get one person in Shivani's class who's from Amazon, they have a great experience, and they go and tell a bunch of people. I had that with somebody who works at SalesLoft, who's a VP of product, and all of a sudden it was a bunch of SalesLoft people wanted to come and take storytelling with me. That's really that moment that opened up the eyes of, well, instead of just trying to draw people into a B2C style course, why not just take it B2B and go to like a SalesLoft themselves, right? Or to go to especially startups. Startups is what I focus the most with when it comes to storytelling. We all know Steve Jobs' quote, the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. Startups understand disruption. They understand doing something different. And so what does that mean? A lot of startups are like, how can I train my team? Maybe you're a Series B, Series C startup, and you're like, I need all my people to be the marketer. I need all my people to be the recruiter. I need all my people to be the salesperson. So storytelling makes sense for them. So for me, instead of trying to draw people necessarily into, hey, you're going to fill in 3 seats in my course, it's why not just go directly to that company that has those resources to invest in their people. And if we think about it from a perspective of we're in the talent wars, we're in the great resignation, all these different pieces, what if you can offer the people who work at your company a learning experience that's far greater than, hey, just listen to this person speak at you. It's going to be a cohort. You're going to build a connection with your employees. You're going to have these subject matter experts who are actually coming in and really delivering things that you didn't expect to get as a benefit of being a part of this company. And that's why I think the B2B play is really interesting for these creators, to Dickie's point, who are doing mostly these skill-based things that you need inside of a company. So again, for me, it's storytelling and speaking. That's an obvious no-brainer. For everyone, that's not going to be the case, but for some, that will be.
Candice.
Everything, I agree with everything these guys have said. I would add 2 more things. So, what our experience is, one of our top Disco Studios customers is the #1 management thinker in the world. His name is Roger Martin. And we just ran, a 200-person cohort. And what we found is that all of these, there's CEOs who participate in this, business leaders, strategy practitioners. At the end of the experience, they all went back to their companies, and they didn't want just 1 seat. They wanted to actually have what we call intimacy at scale, using Disco, their own private cohort for this experience. And what's interesting about community and social and live learning is that it's a unique experience. It's scarce and it's unique, and it can actually be relatively customized with the right facilitator against the curriculum, right? And so I think we're just seeing like the tip of the iceberg in what's possible when it comes to intimacy at scale around corporate learning experiences that are truly transformative.
Absolutely. Yes. I see our hand.
And maybe this is a question for the platforms, Disco and Maven, but I'm curious how you think about diversity of the people in your cohorts, economic diversity, racial diversity, all that diversity. Is it important? How do you deal with it?
How do you build a diverse cohort? Is that an important feature for platforms? Wes, would you like to start?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we think about on the instructor side, is bringing on diverse instructors who are from a bunch of different verticals, who represent different groups. I think right now we are 40% women, 60% men for our instructors. We definitely want to get to at least 50-50 parity. But it's much better than where we were even 3-4 months ago. So that's definitely something that we're thinking a lot about. When it comes to the student side, it really depends on the instructor's audience and where their communities are. So there are some communities that have more women, some communities that are more male-dominated, some communities that are where it cuts across verticals. So something like storytelling, you could have people from a bunch of different verticals taking this course. And then you'll have courses like Shivani's course, where it's mainly women in tech, so it's a bit more specific. But that's definitely something that we're always keeping an eye on, especially as we bring on new instructors and see, what does their cohort makeup look like, and how can we be better at diversity.
Candice, what about you?
Yeah, so one thing we really encourage on our platform and at Disco Studios is scholarships and sort of being able to provide discount codes and scholarship codes. And I think that's really important when it comes to diversity and making sure that there's access, especially at high price points. So, Margaret Atwood is actually running an incredible experience with us in Disco Studios around, solving some of humanity's greatest challenges, a course called Practical Utopias. And, a big part of this is the scholarship program that we've brought to this experience so that it can be an extremely diverse group of fellows, as we're calling them. And we actually think it's incredibly important in this format. And I'm glad that you brought it up because it's not asynchronous. It's not just consumption of content. So much of this is peer-led community learning and different perspectives. So if you're navel-gazing and you're in an echo chamber, you're not really going to get the level of transformation that you likely are intending or wanting unless you have diversity, and that's diversity of all kinds.
So, we're very much early in the cohort-based course world. I just want to ask the audience a couple of questions, and I see you there. Just one moment. How many people here have taken an online cohort-based course? We asked about how many people want to teach. Okay, that's a lot more, about half. Is anybody in here looking to create a cohort-based course platform or toolkit? Okay. Handful of people, great. Okay, please, the question in the fourth row. Mm-hmm. Course creators, yeah, Robbie.
I'm happy to jump in here because mine is probably going to be the most unlike anybody else's. Honestly, because I work mostly with startup founders, they're busy, and trying to stay in touch with them is really not high value for them. Like, they go and do their own thing. And typically what happens is then they come back and talk to me a couple months later when they're going for a new fundraiser, things like that. I've tried to implement community with them, and honestly, it's just not the driving part because they're trying to build a community in their own company. So I think there's this idea of, hey, we've got to continue to foster community. You also have to look at who your customer is, because if the person you're serving doesn't want that ongoing community because they're busy, they're building companies and spending 16, 18 hours a day doing it, they don't want to be forced into a community artificially. So mine is a little bit different where my perspective is I really don't do much touch points beyond continue to produce content myself, and they continue to stay engaged with me. And then if needed, I'm always open to make the connections that they need. So it's kind of accessible, but not forced on them.
So Andrew, I'm curious, Lion, I'm curious how you teach people about alumni.
Yeah.
relations?
So I look at it. I mean, I look at it from that angle as well. The other thing to think about is how to make it as easy as possible for them to share what a great experience they had, right? So that, and I know you guys do this really well, so I'd love to hear like with the practical stuff you do. But that's another thing. It's just you don't necessarily have to continue to teach them or anything like that, but to be able to give them an opportunity to share that experience and make that as frictionless as possible.
I mean, I think there's a few things on that. There's one which on the creator side, it's, hey, if you just taught someone a new skill or introduced them to a new way of thinking, what are their new problems that they have? And could you create another opportunity for them to learn something from you? So that's one angle. The second is they're your biggest help in running a future cohort, right? So after every cohort, we have alumni captains come back, and they have responsibilities for helping initial students kind of get up to speed quickly. And there's so many of them who they finish their first cohort and say, how can I continue helping? How can I come back? How can I share? How can I take everything that, and this goes back to what we said on giving a transformation. If you deliver something meaningful, they're going to feel like, hey, I just want to give back and make sure that other people who join the course as well get this as much as I did.
Fantastic. So we're coming on the end of our time. Let's try to compete with that room next door and make a lot of noise. Make it look like we're having as much fun as they are. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Oh man, great panel. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. We've got to leave the room, so if you want to talk to these panels, meet us out front in the hall. Thanks so much.